Hold the Line with Mike Solon is brought to you by the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Seattle's public safety voice.
Hey, welcome back to Hold the Line with Mike Solon. Well, it's official. We're in a public spat, a disagreement, an argument, a fight with Assistant Chief Dan Buster Nelson, police abolitionist Sean Scott, who is the 43rd Legislative District Representative from Seattle in Olympia, newly elected, and Mayor of Seattle, Bruce Harrell. Stick around for the details.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. This is where we hold them. This is where we fight.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish. Not a fight. Hold the line!
All right, so what does this all mean? Well, it means that the union, SPOG, Seattle Police Officers Guild, we represent the officers and sergeants within the Seattle Police Department. We're seeing unprecedented attacks against our ability to fight for our members, whether it's labor issues or just issues in Olympia, anti-police bills that are, quite frankly, detrimental to public safety, not just in Seattle, across the state. And we'll break down a few of those bills. Well, if you listen to some of the pundits out there pushing what I deem is alternative forms of policing, that talking point has obviously been heard around the nation, and I think more importantly, in the city of Seattle. Activists and I think far-left political heads who are anti-police in general have been pushing an alternative response to public safety issues away from armed police. And since 2020, we all know, it's been documented, I've piped off on the podcast, that how many people we've lost, close to 700 cops in the city. Yes, we settled a contract not too long ago, which makes us the highest paid in the state, but yet we are still out of contract. And the city is desperate to get quality human beings to be police officers in the city because, you know, it's not that great of an atmosphere, even with the pay raise and whatnot, to want to be a Seattle cop because the anti-police rhetoric is still alive and strong. Yes, for sure, we've had a rise in applicants in a good amount in terms of the statistics, historic, but the bottom line is how many of those are going to shake out in the academy and get through FTO remains to be seen. And I'm very concerned about, I think, some of the rhetoric coming out of representatives in Olympia, especially in particular to House bills, and very concerned about a bill in particular that I'm going to break down, House Bill 1816. We'll put a link in the description. But in and of itself, what is an alternative response unit? Well, basically, SPOG supports the concept. Clearly, we're going to link the MOU in the notes. Given the amount of catastrophic losses we've had with cops, we cannot keep up with the amount of 911 calls or police responses at a level that's reasonable. Bottom line is we don't have enough cops. Every shift, every precinct, every day, we are almost below minimum safe staffing levels. So if you're a community member looking for a police response on whatever issue, it could be a long time before the police get there. So we had to make some moves at the bargaining table because per city charter, per our contract, the police officers are the public safety response to answer the community needs when it comes to public safety. It's clear. It's based in common sense and reality. Well, we realized we can't continue some of that work at a reasonable level where the community would see that, hey, number one, their tax dollars are being put to good use and they need someone from the city to represent them. So we had to make a move, and the alternative form of policing concept has garnered energy, and quite frankly, we've accepted it. So much that we've accepted it that we actually negotiated them, meaning the alternative response unit, if you will, that concept, to be in existence. You can see clearly that an alternative response unit, it's called a pilot project because it's not yet permanent, although it's still good for the remainder of this year, 2025 fiscal year, And I'll quote just the initial body of the language wrapped up in a contractual memorandum of understanding, which is public. The city's dual dispatch alternative response pilot project is what it's called. Dual dispatch means police still go to calls where alternative response employees, such as CARES personnel, go to these calls where police have to make sure the scene is safe, and then we can leave the scene and give the authority for the alternative responder to handle the public safety call for service. It's contractually. We agreed to it. The deal allows them to, meaning the city, them, to hire 24 full-time employees to do this business. And what it is, it's two types of calls. The information can be received by the Seattle Police Dispatching, or CARES dispatch, if you will. Indicates the call, number one, is nonviolent, person down. We've seen a lot of those people in downtown where a person's just randomly down on a sidewalk. We don't know if they're alert and conscious or what's going on. If they want to do a welfare check on adults where minors are not present and where the adult is not in the driver's seat of a vehicle. During the course of the pilot project, the parties may evaluate additional call types that may be suitable for dual dispatch and may mutually agree in writing to expand the type of calls covered by the agreement, which we've linked in the description. So we embrace alternative forms of policing. We have to. We don't have enough bodies. But as we get more police officers, we hope to meet the community needs in a reasonable and timely manner. In the meantime, we have to pivot and allow other entities to do some of our body of work, which we've agreed, as I said it multiple times. The reason why I say that multiple times is because what you've heard lately, the rhetoric is, it's taking too long to negotiate the CARES project. The people are dying, is what you hear. It's unconscionable that they're saying that. And they're basically blaming us as if we're the problem, which is never the case. I shouldn't say never. We're not, free of wrongdoing here in terms of taking our time on certain issues, but we have to take our time sometimes to be calculated and measured, make sure we're doing the right thing as we advocate for the cops that still work for this city. So I digress. So what the hell is the CARES project? It's basically, in and of itself, a title put towards an alternative form of policing model with civilian employees who have a background in mental health and crisis responders. And they go forth and are authorized via the MAU to go check on people down as long as it's a dual dispatch role with the police. And as they get some more acumen and as we're at the table negotiating this, they could perhaps do more in terms of their authority. But the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because House Bill 1816 completely subverts the bargaining at the table, which we are currently participating in with the city of Seattle. Link is in the description with House Bill 1816. It's authored by police abolitionist Sean Scott. Pictured here. And what it does, it basically says that populations of 500,000 or more people, well, get newsflash, that's the city of Seattle only in the state of Washington, are going to be mandated to have this type of CARES model, a crisis responder unit in a civilian capacity. Okay, that's fine. I mean, we agree with civilians assisting us in these types of police calls. I've already articulated that. But where this gets sticky, where the red flag is flown or thrown from me and the union, is the fact that embedded in the House Bill 1816 language, at least initially, it called for the complete subversion of collective bargaining rights for the police union in populations with 500,000 or more people. Well, guess what? That's SPOG. So they intentionally wrote the language in the bill to cut us out of negotiations, which is a violation of state labor law. It's a violation of our contract. It's unethical, and it's unconscionable. But it's not a surprise that a police abolitionist, Sean Scott, has authored this language, and you look at all the representatives that are in support of this nonsensical bill, you can see the trajectory of where their mindset is in terms of their opinion on public safety and policing. So we got that going for us. Where this gets really bad, that we threw another red flag on, is a Seattle Police Department assistant chief named Dan, and we've coined him Buster Nelson, picture here, testified in uniform at public comment in support of House Bill 1816. So this assistant chief is okay with subverting union rights in exchange for advocating for alternative forms of policing in perpetuity. That's an absolute no-go for us. And I don't think we've seen that ever in my career in terms of somebody in uniform at the position that they're in, an assistant chief, testifying in public. And what I view is union busting, particularly with people that he supervises. It's stunning. And then you see that Sean Scott, who was just newly elected in November, was softly supported by Mayor Bruce Harrell, although the mayor has never, in my knowledge, publicly said that he supports Sean Scott. But Sean Scott himself, as the candidate, has said that Mayor Harrell did support his candidacy. And so when we're at the table bargaining cares, because the MOU that I've linked in the description, it sunsets at the end of 25. What does sunset mean? It means it ends, that the language is no longer valid. So which would make potentially the CARES pilot project, the alternative response project, those 24 people that we agreed could do our body of work due to our staffing concerns, it ends. So the city, since we settled our last contract, the catch-up, which we're already out of contract with, which is another podcast by itself, they're at the table with us, bargaining CARES in perpetuity. What does that mean? It means CARES can be here forever. That yes, they can do SPOG's former body of work on certain public safety situations. Have an alternative response. Somebody that's non-armed has some version of skill set when it comes to crisis response, knowledge base, and knows. I think some of the programs can assist these people out of their situation living on the street. Yes, the House Bill 1816 has been amended to now drop it down to populations with 200,000 or more people. There is some interpretation now that the collective bargaining concern has been remedied. But if you read it, here's the amended version we link in the description too, you can see that that language is extremely unclear, muddied, written in an unreasonable manner that makes you think that legal language can put you to sleep. We are still waiting on multiple legal interpretations on what that language means. So we're still taking a stance that it's anti-collective bargaining, period. But so we don't bury the lead, the initial march on this bill circumvented collective bargaining, cut out our ability to control public safety language as it impacts our people that we represent, the police officers in this city, the line officers and sergeants. That's the problem. So check out the video we put together in response to Buster Nelson's support of this bill, who Sean Scott is, and obviously, I think for the first time ever, we went public in a fight with the mayor where we called all three of those individuals clowns. You know, is it a good look for us in terms of the optics of putting a wig and a clown nose on the mayor of the city of Seattle? You know, I would say no. And then yes, depends upon what your interpretation is. Is it unprofessional? I could hear both sides. But the bottom line is that we had to have a response that got their attention. And I can assure you that that got their attention. You know, we have a contract session in a few days where the city is eager to get back to the table, and so are we. But we're going to have an adult conversation as to the predicament that the city decided to put us in. So we are reacting to the city's bad faith bargaining. Time and time again, the city tends to do this. And the fact that if they're unhappy with the progress at the table, you cannot in good faith or in just realm of reality or common sense or decency use the legislative powers to get your way to subvert collective bargaining. It's crazy. So if you're looking to like roll out a red carpet for police applicants in this city, what a horrible way to illustrate that you don't support police. How are you going to attract more people if you treat the union who represents those people in this manner? So we rebuke those actions by the city, Sean Scott, anybody that supported it, and clearly Buster Nelson. You can't do that. You can't. And we had to go hard in the paint, and we did so. Happy to hear your comments in the thread. Believe me, we had a robust discussion on this. You know, it's not a good look to go against the mayor, but sometimes you got to just call balls and strikes the way it is outside of the political lens. This is the reality we deal with in this public safety conversation, how politicized it still is in the city of Seattle. Nothing happens at that bargaining table from the city's team without the mayor's approval. Nothing. Believe me. Being in the room, knowing how the process works, my conversations, clearly, that's what occurs. So check out this link too. It's from The Urbanist. I'll credit the author, Amy Sundberg. It basically states, and this was authored February 17th, so just a few days ago, state bill would circumvent SPOG, clear path for Seattle civilian responder expansion. Well, guess what? Now it's statewide. And you've pulled in firefighters, and you've pulled in other unions that have to deal with this now. So you're mandating this type of crisis response unit for populations of over 200,000 people. Well, buckle up, taxpayers. You're paying it. So Seattle's issues, all based on politics, are now impacting you across the state. Here's a look into our video we put up.
Today I'm testifying in support of House Bill 1816.
And we close it with protecting your Seattle. So, I mean, it's game on. Tired of the hijinks from the city completely eviscerating our rights. And then if you look at, look it up here, we'll put the link in the description, the Police Accountability Ordinance in 2017. They enact that then Seattle Council enacted this ordinance, basically made it law in the city charter, which basically subverted our collective bargaining rights for police accountability legislation, which is undeniably unreasonable, lacks common sense, and basically calls for things that are what we feel are unconstitutional to our basic Bill of Rights, just as human beings. And so we're bargaining that at the table too. So how do we deal with that monster? But then the city acted in that manner to just completely subvert our rights. And then they're continuing it 6 years later, 8 years later. In 2025, they're doing the same thing in Olympia, subverting our bargaining rights at the table. The ultimate goal of these political heads and the activists that control the police accountability narrative, they want to nullify police unions. They want to cancel us. They want to get rid of us. That's why I'm just so unimpressed by Buster Nelson, that this guy who's a police officer doesn't see the forest through the trees of what the end game is. The end game is to remove policing in the form that they have known for decades. Time and time again, you look at news stories related to public safety and crime, the rise in crime, victims out there. Look at the comments. Time and time again, the comments want more, the commenters, I should say, the community, they want more police. They're begging for more police. begging. It's out of control, and yet you see more anti-police bills in Olympia. Here's another one for you. This came out earlier, and we put a post on at Spog 1952, but I want to give credit to, I'm going to put my readers on, sorry about that, I'm getting a little old. Washington State Legislative Alert, credit to Susan Dupree. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. It's S.A. Dupree. Give her a follow, please. Put out great work, and this is the breakdown. It's going to be Senate Bill 5066. And what it does, it basically grant the state authority over local law enforcement. This bill would grant Washington Attorney General authority to investigate and charge local law enforcement. Think about that. The Washington Attorney General does not have blanket authority to investigate and charge. The Washington Constitution says the Washington Attorney General must be delegated specific duties by the legislature. This bill does that in spades. It not only grants the Washington Attorney General the authority to investigate and charge local law enforcement criminally, but it also grants civil authority. Criminal charges must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, whereas civil charges only need to be proven by preponderance of the evidence, 51% likely. In further description of this, SB 5066 is a part of a larger move to take over local law enforcement. Let me just say that again. It's part of a larger move to take over law enforcement. So then you look at House Bill 1816, where they're mandating alternative forms of policing, non-armed police to be these crisis responders. This is only going to get bigger. And I'll continue with this description because she does a great job. It also gives Washington Attorney General the authority to initiate investigations on its own initiative as opposed to acting on a complaint. So they can just proactively do their own complaint against police, any police officer in the entire state. They don't have to have a community member complain. They'll just do it. According to her take, this is ripe for political abuse, and I agree with her. It's absolutely spot on. What's interesting is that the State Patrol and other state agencies are excluded. So if you're a state employee, you're not going to be scrutinized to this, but the Attorney General is just going to look at local law enforcement across the state. We're going to carve out the State Patrol. Is that not a conflict? And finally, to add insult to injury, an emergency clause has been added to the bill. So check it out. Links in the description. Connect with your state representative, your senator. Throw shade at these bills. They're anti-police. They're anti-community, in my opinion. Folks, we're in unprecedented times in this state. Policing is still, in terms of the Washington conversation on law enforcement, we are still the lowest amount of officers per capita in our republic, including the District of Columbia. And when you have the energy behind these bills in Olympia right now, a Democratic-controlled legislature body, it's up to us to try to wrangle back common sense and reason. Your public safety is on the line. The activists have gotten control of the narrative, and they're winning. That's why I started this podcast. Please like and subscribe this, share it, comment down below. We got to get organized here, people, or else, your safety is on the line. Public safety is on the line in this state. And these bills are so anti-police and anti-common sense that if we already are the least amount of officers per capita in the nation, and you have these bills targeting officers, what's left? Crime is going to go through the roof. In SPD alone, Seattle Police, 21% of the police employees are eligible to retire as I speak to you. We've already lost close to 700 people. Folks, if we lose another 100, it's over. Shut the lights down. What are we to do? Sure, you can say that, of course, I'm going to be a police apologist. No, that's not the case at all. We're professional. I'm professional. We're the most accountable agency in the United States of America. Hands down. Hands down. This is about control. So basically, that Senate bill is a miniature version. Miniature is probably the wrong word. It's the JV of the Department of Justice on a federal scale. So the Department of Justice has a consent decree authority where they can come in and they can take over if they justify reasons as to why they want to. Seattle is still under a consent decree. But now this bill would allow the state attorney general in Washington to now have almost the same authority as the federal Department of Justice. It's stunning. Buckle up, people. You got to get involved. Until next time, you got to get active. Connect with your representative, connect with your senator, support police, support public safety. And if we all can do that basic action, we will continue to hold the line and stand up to tyranny.